Alright, hello everybody and welcome to VOD number 2 for beginner belly dance. My name is Julie. Last Saturday was the first VOD. We went over some really basic stuff. It was a little bit short. So what we're going to do this week is we're going to go over what we did last week, and then I'm going to add a couple more things. It's going to get a little more complicated, but as with everything, as you practice, you start doing more and more complicated things. A couple of things real quick. You do not need to be skinny or petite or tiny in order to belly dance. You can be any size and still be able to belly dance. So I don't want to hear, I'm too big, I'm too fat. That doesn't exist in the belly dance world. There are even male belly dancers, which some of them will just like blow you away with how good they are. It's amazing. So go ahead with that. If something starts hurting or you can't do something because of a physical limitation, please don't try. You don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to cause any issues or anything like that. Third thing, breathing is not optional. You need to breathe, so take it at your own pace. If you need to pause to take a breather, perfectly fine. Number 4 is always hydrate. My water bottle's around here somewhere. I forget where it is though. I forgot to fill it up. Oh well. So what I'm going to do first is turn this on. Let's get some air circulation going. Okay, so last week we started with some very basic hip moves and chest moves. The first basic hip move was the hip bump. Okay, so if you're going to remember from last week, you need to remember to set yourself right. You need to make sure your feet are a comfortable distance apart. Don't be like this. And if you've got gigantic thunder thighs like I do, and this is difficult for you or uncomfortable for you to stay in for a long period of time, go ahead, set your feet. I usually have mine about hip width apart. It's where most people feel most comfortable with their feet, even if you don't have monster thunder thighs. Okay, number 2 on setup. Make sure your knees stay bouncy. Okay? A lot of our movement comes from our knees in dance, especially with some of these hip movements. That's where you get, like, the deeper your knees are bent, the more shimmy will show, or the more swing will show. And that's where you keep your knees nice and soft and bouncy. The third thing is you need to tuck your pelvis, and this is a bit of a foreign concept for a lot of people. Okay? So as we all know, your pelvis is the bone that's connected to your hip bones. Okay? So a lot of us want to stand like this. What you want to do is just kind of rotate your pelvis inward, like forward. Okay, it's kind of foreign for some people because we have a tendency to want to stick our rear ends out. But this is how your hips need to be. Your pelvis needs to be in here. Some people eventually have some trouble with the concept, so just try to practice feeling like you're sliding this part forward, like this area of your body forward. Okay? Other one is shoulders back. Press your shoulder blades into your back. It'll help keep your shoulders nice and straight and the movement's good. Okay, so that's all posture. The first movement we did last week was a simple hip bump. So that means your hip goes that way or your hip goes that way. So it's just a simple bump. Now remember, all the bump is you slide your hip to the side and you kind of pop your left knee down while keeping your right one fairly straight. Pop. And the left is the same way. Straighten the left knee, leave the right one bent. Just pop, pop. And eventually you'll be able to slide back and forth with them. Just like this. Okay? Second thing we did was the double hip bump. So it's the same as this, But instead of stopping after one, you slide, slide, or slide, slide. So it's bump, 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 bump. Okay? Yeah, next thing we learned was a hip lift. We call them side crunchies. So you lift your hip. You keep this one in a neutral position and you lift this one. I'll have a tendency to push up with my toe. You can leave your foot flat. The toe's more uncomfortable for me. I don't know if you can see my toes up. So that's a crunchie. You want to try to take your hip bone and smash it into your rib cage. See? And then as the movements get faster, you're going to want to put your feet a bit closer together. So to do it, the hip bump at double time, it's bump, or the hip lift at double time, it's bump, bump, bump. Which will eventually get you into your shimmy. And a shimmy is just a knee movement. My shimmies are really rough lately, and I'm not quite sure why my left knee does not want to cooperate with me. It's probably the weather. Okay, the other thing we did was a chest slide. Chest slides, arms out, and you slide the rib cage to the side. And then this way. So it's a slide, center, left, center, right, center, left, center. Kalea, are you here to say hello? Rude. And then you have your chest lift, which is someone has a string right here and is pulling straight up. So lift, 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 lift. And you can go right, left, right, left. Okay, so that's basically what we went over last week. Let's go ahead and start with some more hip movement. Okay, so something we do with our hips is called a figure eight, and it's quite literally an infinity sign or a figure eight. Okay? In order to do these, you can imagine you have like pencils on your hips and you're drawing a figure eight on the ground. Okay? So it's you slide forward, I'll give you an idea, slide forward, take this hip and push it forward, bring it around, slide this hip forward, not this way, but this way, like at an angle. Bring it around. And it's basically like your hips are on a track and you're causing you're making a figure eight. So it's out, around, out, around, out, around, out, around. So it's just a simple slide forward, move it back. Slide forward, move it back. Okay? Let's do this a couple more times. Slide forward, move it back, slide forward, move it back. Forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. Okay? And it's just do it a little faster without that hesitation. You're going to want to try to keep your chest and your torso as still as possible. You will have torso and a little bit of head movement, just because everything in the body is connected to everything else. So no matter how hard you try, especially in the beginning, you're going to have some movement. It should just be a little bit of a sway though. And if it helps you guide you put your hands right in here. Okay, so that's just a figure 8 to the right. To the left, because everything in belly dance, if you go right with it, you got to go left with it, is the same thing. Slide the hip forward, bring it around, slide the hip forward, bring it around. Okay? And don't worry about this right now, but the bouncier your knee, the more bent you are, the more your hips will accentuate. Okay? My trusty helper. You're not helping. You're just being cute. She's right there. Kalea's right there on the floor being cute. Okay? So that's a figure 8 with the hips. And at the end of the video, we'll go back and go over it again. The next thing you're going to want to do is they're called Mayas. And from what I know, and I have been told, Maya means water in Arabic. The motion is called a Maya because it looks like waterfalls going out to the sides. Okay? It also looks like you're peeling a banana. So, you are the banana. So it's just basically bring the hip up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So when I'm doing the motion, let me step back a little bit so you can see my feet better. I have a tendency, it has that hip lift that we did earlier with a push out and a down. I use my foot to help give it some more oomph. It's actually the harder way to do a Maya. You can do Mayas flat-footed. Oh wait, no, I got that wrong. Using your toe is the harder way to do a Maya, or the easier way to do a Maya. Flat-footed is harder because you don't have your toes to help you with the lift. I like doing them flat-footed. Sometimes I'll raise my toe, but it's just like peeling a banana. So the hip goes up, out, down, up, out, down, up, out, down, up, out, down. Keep that pelvis tucked. And as you go lower, you'll get more of an accentuation of the hips. The hips will have more swing to them. Okay. We are slowly being invaded by Kat. I think she thinks I'm playing with her. Okay, so that's a Maya. And they're kind of like, it's either peeling a banana, or you can think of them as kind of like figure 8s without that slide in the middle. Okay? So remember, the figure 8 is like this, with a slide in the middle. And a Maya, you don't really have that slide. I've also pulled something in my back today, so my moves are kind of wonky. Okay. So, let's see. Okay. So, like I said, as we go left and right with our hips, we also can do stuff with our chest. Okay? So remember the slides and the corner lifts. Pretty simple, right? We also can do something that connects them all together, and it's like a box. So you have corner, 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 corner. So let's go ahead and start to the left. Okay? So left, right, down right, slide left. Okay? So upwards left, slide upwards right, drop down to the right, slide back over to the left. Okay? So up, right, down, left. Up, right, down, left. Remember, if we do it to the left, we got to do it to the right. So up to the right, slide to the left, down on the left, slide to the right. Up right, slide left, down left, slide right. Up left, down right. Up left, down right. Okay. Those can be turned into an oval. Okay? We call it knocking the corners off. So you've got your up to the right, slide to the left, down to the left, slide to the right. So instead of stopping, making a rectangle, go up, right, left, down, right. And just knock those corners off. You should feel your chest lift and then drop. Okay? It's almost like you're going to try to hunch your shoulders. But you want to keep your shoulders your shoulder blades as against your back as you can. Okay, now go to the left. Go from left to right. Okay? So you remember it's up left, right, down, left. Up left, right, down, left. So just nice even circle, or oval, excuse me. If it makes you feel like you're more stable, put your hands on your hips. Just like that. You should feel a tightness in here and a tightness in your back when you're doing this, because this is engaging a lot of your upper abdominal muscles. When you're doing hip work, you're doing a lot of engagement of your lower abdominal muscles. Okay? So let's go back and review what we've gone over so far. Not the stuff from last week, just this week so far. The figure eights with the hip. So it's like you've got, some people go like this. It's actually on your hips like this, like it's pencils. And if it helps you guide, hold your hands to your hips. We'll do it to the left. Now do your Mayas. I do them flat-footed if it makes you feel better to raise your foot up. Remember to scrunch up and a arc out down. Up, down, down. Then we have our ovals on the chests. So remember upright, slide left, down left, slide right. And just knock those corners off. Go to the right. Okay. You don't say. The next thing we're going to do is a little simpler, kind of give ourselves a little bit of break. So we remember the hip shimmy. your lower half shimmy. You can do something like that with your top. Now, that doesn't mean okay, culturally speaking, Arabic belly dance, your shoulders don't move very much when you do a shoulder shimmy. You may even have trouble seeing me do it right now. This is Arabic. Okay, and when it's faster, it's just a very tiny, slight movement. Turkish is a little bit more. Still very isolated, okay? You don't want to move your breasts. We're not doing this, okay? Gypsy is a little bit more, but I don't dance a lot of gypsy. Actually, I should say Roma. Gypsy is a derogatory term. Most prefer to be called Roma. So this is more Roma, where you get far back and you get going. What we're kind of focusing on right now for the basics is Arabic, because you don't have to lean far back with the Arabic. It's more upright and just a very tiny movement. Okay? So it's just basically your shoulders alternate which one's forward or back. It's just basically back, forward, back, forward. And you just go quicker. It's just enough to make the decorations on your top shimmer and clink. You don't want everything flying all over the place. Even if the music's faster, you kind of keep it very isolated. Okay? You can also do shoulders more accentuated, but without the quickness. Okay? So it's just basically bump, 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 bump. So if you're to the side, you can go forward and back. There's not a lot of movement in here. It's all in your shoulders. Okay? And you have to keep, when you're doing the shoulder shimmy and the shoulder wiggle, you keep your arms out. There's a couple of etiquette things with your arms, okay? You don't want them up in here unless you're doing arm movements like this, or if you're doing seaweed arms or something. If you're just doing basic arms, they need to be out to your side. And not like this. You want a bend to your elbow, okay? And your hands, the hands are the most important part, okay? There's a couple of hands you can do. The most common is called it's called lotus hand, where your hand is very relaxed. You have your pinky finger more up, your middle finger more down, and your thumb is just kind of here. It's not out here, it's here. So you have your hands out like this. And then you can do shoulder work. Okay? And you don't want your hands in here, because then you look like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Okay, this isn't pretty. This is elegant. You can do snake hands. I've actually never used snake hands in any dance. They're not as common. Even if when you're doing snake arms, your hands are very like this. The other thing you never do, unless you're doing hands of Fatima, which is, this is an evil eye representation. You'll see in a lot of Middle Eastern Arabic artwork, hands like this with an evil eye painted here. It's like a repelling force, also called hands of, it's picked up the name hands of Fatima, even though this is a very ancient thing. It picked up the name after one of Muhammad's daughters or wives. I can't remember. So unless you're doing this, or you're doing something like this, do not show your palms to your audience. okay? It's considered a little rude. You can do things like this, arm changes, very easy, but you never bring your hands to show them to your flat palm like this. You may have something where your hands are like this, you're to the side like this, but you never do this. It's considered rude. A couple more things about belly dance etiquette. Besides this being very difficult to move in, this is also considered, what's the word? One lady used the word vulgar, but I don't like using that word for this. It's improper. Not only is it hard to move in, but even if you have a skirt on, it looks very, just very lowbrow, okay? You want to keep your feet together for movement and also for elegance, okay? If you're doing floor work, you need to make sure you don't spread your legs wide open. Again, it's considered very lowbrow. That delves into the side of belly dance that a lot of belly dancers try to avoid, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that kind of dance. There's nothing wrong with using dance sexually. It's just when you're performing for an everyday audience with kids and grandparents and parents and stuff like that, you want to keep it more tucked in, okay? You save the other stuff for other things. I'm trying not to be dismissive, but this is much more traditional, and traditional Middle Eastern belly dance is very demure. It's about very, look at me. Oh, don't look at me. Ha 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 ha. Okay, no. Very flirty. Okay? All right. So, something that is very iconic to belly dance is the belly roll. Okay? These can be very difficult for some people. I have a natural talent for doing it. Don't ask me how I got it, I just do. The easiest way to learn a belly roll is you tuck your upper abdomen in, then you tuck your lower abdomen in, then you stick your abdomen out. Okay? And you do this until you feel like you can just kind of do it in a natural motion. You can also do it starting at the bottom, so bottom, top, out, out. In, out, out. From the front. A word of warning with these: if you do them for too long, you're going to loosen up your bowels. Okay? I'm not kidding. So if you're constipated and you can do this, it's one of the great ways to get yourself to go to the bathroom. Don't do it for more than, I'd say, 20 to 30 seconds in a shot. It's a good filler for when you need to just kind of breathe. Okay? Let's go back to the hips now. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but this is kind of how I learned. You learn one thing and then you let this rest and you learn another. So what we're going to do is a front hip twist. This, you're going to want your feet a little bit closer together. They don't need to be smashed together, but just a little bit closer together. And what you're going to do, and put your arms out so you can balance. Make sure you're in proper pose. You stick your toe out, and you don't bow, you kind of barely touch the ground, and you lift your hip. Okay? Go ahead and stay in this position. All of your weight is on this leg. This leg is a rock. This is holding you up. This leg is out here doing whatever the heck it wants to do. So keep your balance and just lift the hip and then sit down. Lift, sit, lift, sit, lift, sit. And so from the side, just so you can see, it's you're lifting your hip and then sitting. So it's up, sit, up, sit. Okay, we'll go ahead and do it on the left. Your right leg is now your rock. Left leg is out here in La La Land. Lift, sit. I have a tendency to want to move my left hand forward for some reason. Lift, sit, lift, sit. And as you get more comfortable, you can just balance on the one foot, keep the other one in the air. Don't do that until you feel comfortable though, okay? So these are fairly versatile. So you can go bump, bump, up, up, bump, up, bump, up. They're also the basis for what's called an Egyptian swing, or basic Egyptian, excuse me, which is bump, 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 bump. See? It's called basic Egyptian. You can do it to the four corners. You can do it in a circle. You can travel with it. We'll go over it a bit more another time. But that's yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. A bit scatterbrained today. A little more than normal. So yeah, just up, sit, up, sit. So bump, 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 or up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And you can eventually do things like this. Okay? All right, so I think we're starting to near end time. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a little quick review. Shoulder shimmies, remember, nice and isolated. If you're doing the shimmy, if you're just doing the bump, just like this, okay? Chest circles are the up, down, slide, up, and just knock the corners off your box, okay? And go left. You have your belly roll, up, in, out, out, in, out, out, in, out, out, in, out, out. Those are hard to do and speak at the same time. You have your hip figure eights. So slide out, around, slide out and around, out and around, out and around. You have your mayas, or with your toes. And then you have the twist up and down. Twist up and sit, up, sit, up, sit, sit, up, sit, up, sit, up, sit. Remember that move, because it's going to be in a lot of very good, like, moves like this. Okay? All right, so that is the end of our time. If you have any questions, I should be in the chat. This is a VOD, so if you haven't figured that out by now, sorry. So go ahead, I will be in the chat for about 15-20 minutes after the video ends. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. My name is Julie. Thank you for hanging out with us today, and have happy belly dancing.